If you like this book, and this book, and this book, you're gonna love this book. I've made it no mystery on this channel that I love The Butcher Boy. And through our discussions on my Monday night live streams and in the comment section under unboxing videos, I get recommendations all the time about books that might fit that sort of vibe. And one of the recommendations came from a good friend of the channel, Chad Lutsky. And he said, Jeff, you've got to read The Painted Bird. As I described Butcher Boy, he drew connections to this book, which is a little different, but I understand after reading it how that vibe is pretty similar. Essentially, Butcher Boy is about a child who's relatively alone in the world, trying to make sense of his traumatic surroundings. And in so doing, he kind of goes into madness to cope, and he breaks. And he gets progressively more detached from reality as the book goes on. And in that way, it's horrific and it's heartbreaking to see a child go through these struggles. And that's similar in some regards to The Painted Bird. The Painted Bird's about a boy in World War II, Eastern Europe. They never say what country he's in, but I think it's Poland. And his parents are Jewish, and they want to avoid persecution by the Nazis. The Nazis are encroaching and making it known that they are going to be no friend of the world. So the most vulnerable people have a chance to flee. So the parents send their 6-year-old son into hiding to keep him safe until the war's over. And they trust this guy to take him to a village where he can live in anonymity for a while they depart and secure their future and their finances and whatever they need to do to make sure they have a stable life post-war. So things go off the rails right away. This guy takes the boy to a village to live with essentially a witch. I'm not going to say any more than that about the detailed plot synopsis. But the boy ends up going from village to village, searching for purpose and meaning in this madness in the world he finds himself in. And he struggles with this. He doesn't know if he should be a better person or a more evil person, if he needs to be a rebel or obedient. He's trying to take his cues from how people are acting around him. He is a sponge in every village, soaking up basically the worst humanity has to offer. Because I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know it from experience, but during war, civilization takes a time out. The rule of law goes on vacation. People can then live or die by their most basic savage impulses. And they often do to the most vulnerable and the people they can get away with abusing. And a 6-year-old boy wandering from village to village becomes a target for a lot of this. You see some good, but you see such horrible things. There are no amount of trigger warnings I could give you to prepare you for reading this book. Page after page is just a depiction of humanity at its most animalistic. One thing I found really interesting is The Painted Bird makes a similar point that Let's Go Play at the Atoms was making. I think I mentioned this in my review of the book, but for me, in Let's Go Play at the Atoms, there's one part of the book where I think the point is crystallized. It's something that Barbara comes to realize during her captivity, is that you can never fully understand what another person is feeling, thinking, or believing. That everybody is an island, and there's no chance of really getting true empathy or true connection to another human being. It's a bleak outlook on the human condition, and it's reflected in this book as well. You can't really know a person. You can't really feel what they feel. And therefore, can you really have true empathy and understanding of what another person's going through? The boy says it at one point in the book about how being mute doesn't matter because no one listens or understands anyway. And damn if that wasn't a punch in the gut. Now, there have been some criticisms over this book. A couple of things people have said about Jerzy Kosinski, that he didn't write this book because his English wasn't proficient at this stage in his life, 1965, to produce writing at this level. Now, that's a hard thing to prove or disprove. I guess you could show similar samples of his writing in that era and compare and say, all right, well, there's no way this guy could have written this. And that's fair. The other criticism is that it is all a fabrication. I guess Jerzy Kosinski pitched it as an autobiography. When I read it, I took it as a novel. I didn't understand that there were factual components to it. It didn't say a memoir or, my life in Eastern Europe during World War II. So there were no cues. I took it as creative nonfiction at best and just straight up fiction at least. So I think that I didn't go into this thinking, okay, this is factually correct, and therefore I didn't judge it by that. It is a great piece of writing. It's beautiful, barbaric, brutal, all those things that I would assign to Butcher Boy and The Road and Don't Let Them Get You Down. There's a barrier you can break when you get to the dread, the dreary, most bleak boundary of human existence where it becomes poetic and beautiful. It's a fine line between gratuitous and profound. And I think if I take this book as a work of fiction, just on face value, without the trappings of wondering if these things actually happened to Jerzy Kosinski as he fled the Nazis in World War II, then this is a beautiful examination of the worst of humanity. There are some also that have criticized it for its level of horror and shock, that it was gimmicky in parts, where they accused Kosinski of just going for the shock and gore and abandoning plot and character and all those things that separate literature from fiction. And I don't think that he went too far. I think these things are probably vignettes of humanity during wartime. But no matter, it is a powerful book. I give it 5 stars. As I said, this occupies a wonderful, terrible place on my shelves. I would love to see a fine press limited edition of this book. It's definitely worthy. There are tons of visual elements to draw from. The story in the book from which Kosinski pulls the title is a perfect example of something that could be illustrated very powerfully. Now, this is an old book. I'm sure you can find a lot of literature about this book, find a lot of reviews out there. But by and large, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this book. And it could just be one of those things where books come in and out of favor. And I'd like to be part of the resurgence for this title. So leave a comment if you've read it, if you liked it, if you've found other books that are similar to The Painted Bird or Butcher Boy or The Road or Don't Let Them Get You Down. I'm always up for a book like that. Of course, I have to space them out. I can't read them back to back. You need a breather. You need a mental, you need a palate cleanse after that. Right now, I'm reading 11/22/63, and that is just candy compared to this gourmet meal. As always, I'm happy to share these books with you. And until next time, have a book, have a beer, and stay frosty.